According to many sources, right, Citizen Kane is the best movie ever made. And the thing is, Citizen Kane is actually the best movie ever made. And I'm not joking, like, genuinely. I watched it like 2 weeks ago. And what's the premise of Citizen Kane? It is Rosebud. And what is Rosebud? You'll find out after watching the movie. And like, I'm not gonna spoil it for you because it is genuinely the best movie I've ever watched. But it is quite boring at the start. But isn't everything? Anyway, here's what I want to talk to you about. The main premise of Citizen Kane is that Kane was born into richness, born into wealth. He didn't know who his parents were really. He was, taken care of like by a butler, like Batman and Alfred. And during his 20s, right, Kane was, a newspaper publisher, and also Kane started to, get into politics and stuff. He had an affair with a lady, and this affair was gonna, his opposition threatened him that if he doesn't withdraw, they're gonna leak his affair. And, Kane being Kane with his, high ego, he stood on business. He said, do what you want. So he leaves his child and wife behind. And he actually starts to, I think he marries his mistress. Yeah. And that is like a flipping point where you realize this guy is actually just massive ego. Right? He stood on business, but sometimes you have to, step down, especially when it comes to your kids. But he did go to that extreme. Of course, in the end, he lost. But then people actually started clocking on, and Kane was like, I don't want to deal with all this stuff. So of course, I remember very little from the actual storyline because I watched it while working out and stuff. So you might find some misplacements and misunderstandings in my explanation, but the main story is just it is going according to what it is. All right. Anyway, he then lives in his own palace. That's it. He creates his own kingdom. And he has this massive palace. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. He has guests in there, but we don't see them much. And it's like a big palace, and only two people living in there. Kane and his, now wife, who was his mistress. And she dreams of going out now, right? But since Kane hates the world, he's making her stay as well to protect her from the world. While Kane believes he's protecting her, she doesn't particularly consent to this protection, so it is oppression. Right? Keep that in mind. And eventually, Kane's wife leaves him. Second wife. And when she leaves him, he begs her to stay. But she doesn't. And Kane says Rosebud. That was the first time he says Rosebud in the movie. He says Rosebud, and then a few days later, he passes away, saying Rosebud again. And the reason why his wife left him was because Kane didn't know how to love someone. Kane used his money, Kane used his power to essentially make a pet of his loved one. The woman he loves the most at this point, he is enslaving her. And, she realizes she's a woman with rights, she can leave anytime, so she leaves. But it's too late for Kane, It's too late. Because he grew up without parents, so he didn't have basic education about these certain things of how to love someone, how to care for someone. But he had money. And he didn't care if he loved someone. He just wanted everyone to love him, for everyone to be talking about him, for him to be relevant. And he did everything he could to make that happen. And that's kind of sad, because for no particular fault of his, right? That's just the only way he knew how to love, because that's what he grew up with. But that just left his life becoming a tragedy. Even though when he was 20, just starting out, he wanted to spread the truth, to be good, to help people. It slowly descended into, I want to help the people, but the people are stupid, so I'm going to help them without their consent. When the people rejected him, he goes to live alone. Now he wants to take care of his wife, but he does it to an extent where she will eventually go insane if she stays in a castle with just him and her, and he's out probably working and stuff, so she's kind of alone there. And it went to a point where she's just talking to nothing, and she clocked it. She left, and this whole time, after Kane dies, people start to investigate. People start to investigate his last words, because Kane was at the time the most relevant man in this world, and they find nothing. They find no reason as to why Kane said rosebud. But we do. They don't find out, but we do. And how do we find out? Watch the movie, buddy. Good night.